Welcome to an episode of 10,000 Hours and Counting for Season 2 in 2025. So I'm very excited and happy to have here today my beautiful, delightful friend Rena from America. Rena, hi.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for having me.
It's always wonderful when I spend time with Rena. Obviously, I've had an episode with her before, but she's a dear soul friend of mine, and we wanted to come together again and just share some musings from our heart and just hope that that can inspire you. So I did talk to Rena earlier and before the session, and we were talking about. She said she'd been in a space where she was curious. Was she in a sense of spiritual selfishness? Um, because would you like to explain what you thought you meant by that, Rena?
Yeah, no, I definitely I think selfish has such like a negative connotation, but I genuinely believe in my spiritual studies and in my own research and my academic journey, what I've really learned from spiritual teachers and ancient spiritual gurus is that you cannot give from an empty cup. And it's such a cliche, but you truly have to fill yourself up. You truly have to be centered and aligned and quote unquote be selfish to genuinely and authentically give to others with genuine um something that genuinely nourishes other people. If you're giving from a place of like obligation or feeling like you have to do it or you have to quote unquote be kind, you're kidding yourself. You're actually giving from a depleted place. You're actually probably stepping back into ways of people pleasing and doing things out of obligation, and that is never actually going to create genuine nourishment for anyone. And so it's this coming back to self, filling up from this place within that only creates that kind of genuine nourishment and that kind of fulfillment that anything outside of yourself is a cheap substitute. It can't do that. And so when you do that and you're quote unquote selfish, and then you choose intentionally where you want to be of service from a genuine place of giving with a filled cup, then you're actually doing someone's service. Like you're actually creating change. You're actually touching someone's heart. You're actually impacting someone's soul. It's not this cheap substitute to make someone else happy to try to get happiness for yourself. You're just always going to end up being um, left unhappy.
Absolutely. And I think it's so, important that we turn and reframe some of these ideas that society will have come up with over, the last however many hundreds of years, that we understand that sometimes the way a word is understood by everybody is not actually the true genesis of that
Mm.
word. And certainly there's a lot of people's, opinions about how to be a good person, but you do need to really be authentic to yourself. And as you say, when you're giving from that authentic place, it's going to mean a lot more than if you're doing it with perhaps a bit of resentment in the background because you've reached burnout. And even if we're not talking about people pleasers, I do think that for those of us who are, if you want to say, light bearers or light workers, there are many people on the planet who have a genuine desire. It's almost an organic, it's just something that is natural in them to give, to be those givers. They're not doing it to be liked or loved. They're doing it because they feel such a connection to source and humanity that they just naturally are very generous.
Oh,
Even
totally.
people like that, you do need to be careful being like that, that you are filling your own cup. Because even though you're not trying to please people, you're sort of, it feels like a natural thing to do. You will need to be thinking about how to receive for yourself so that you can continue that uninterrupted flow of energy work. So it doesn't matter what reason you're giving, you absolutely do need to think about how to receive for you. And there'll be times when you shut off or you stop doing your earth work if you're a healer and you just have some time for you where you receive from earth. It's so easy to just sort of just keep giving and giving and giving. And I think that can be a human thing. So we do need to take an awareness of We don't want to be in a depleted state. And when you're a depleted state as a healer, that's when you can sort of feel divorced, disconnected from things and have that burnout of almost not being able to care. And we don't want to be in that position either. So it's good to get to the root of that issue before it becomes a problem where you need to really recover from. So I love this idea of selfishness, but as a way, I think I said to you in the text, I said, well, is that everyday enlightenment? Like actually keeping your energy to yourself, because if you are genuinely working with it, it will radiate outwards from you without you needing to do anything. And that will be you as a living example of light to others, having boundaries.
Yeah, thank you for articulating that. I like what you said that as spiritual healers, as empaths, as light workers, as priestesses, if we're on this healing spiritual path and we're meant to be a light to others, it is so easy. And I've done it too, where I've gotten stuck in over giving and then um, feeling resentful at the path and feeling like, oh my gosh, and so for me right now in this time, the reason that I told you, Laura, that I was being spiritually selfish is because this is not where I thought my path was going to be at the moment. Like Laura and I, a few years ago we held a lot of space in a beautiful community and we did a lot of spiritual work. And I thought at this point in my life, I would be doing something different. I would be holding more space or have a huge community of my own. And what feels most authentic for me right now is to be spiritually selfish, to genuinely fill myself up. And I think this is taking quite a few more years than I thought it would. And so that's
Hmm.
why I've been able to like articulate it so well is because it's in contrast to what my mind thought, where I thought I would be, what I thought I would be doing. Um, and so it's been interesting to me, like continuing to align with this knowing that right now my path is to fully focus on myself. How do I take care of myself? How do I um, support myself? How does my divine masculine and divine feminine, coexist within my human experience right now? And for some reason, this is part of my path of knowing myself deeper so that when I do hold space for a community, I really have this deep, strong foundation. And so that's been very at times like, okay. And so for me to understand that, I'm like, I'm just being spiritually selfish. Like this is my time. Unapologetically.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's the things that we tell ourselves too, because for a lot of us who are doing this path, we are like already sacred rebels. We don't adhere to what society says. We do our own thing. We're not necessarily all bogged down by the shoulds and all the things that people agree to, because when you are working your own path, you're generally thinking outside of the norm, outside of the matrix. So even with that, though, it does need time for you. You know, you're not just sort of doing things because you should, but you need to understand that there'll be a reason for what the path wants from you and why when you think that you're ready, even if you feel ready, it's part of that almost initiation again of allowing yourself to become stronger. You said the words foundation, really allowing yourself to become so strong and unshakable, unbreakable within those foundations, and especially now we're like the roomie, we're dancing on a shifting carpet now with humanity. So all of us light bearers, healers, I mean, that really needs to be finding solid foundations. And it's not the way we used to. It's like you've got to go through this carpet of muck, like into the energy of the etheric of what Gaia is genuinely the ascension energy. And it's very new ways of connecting to spiritual energy and of nourishing you. So I love that you had said that it's really trusting the process and, getting out of our own way because our mind has always got a thought about what it wants and wanting to control stuff. And of course, that's ultimately not helpful for anyone. So being able to say I'm feeling spiritually selfish now or to, reframe it and give that time to you. And even if you've got dependents or any other obligations, there's got to be some time for you because in the end, you will not have quality to give. And the last thing, the absolute last thing you want to do when you're giving is to be giving from a place of resentment and burnout for you and for the other people. That is not good juju. It's not good universal energy for anyone. So that's an important thing to just think about and then use it to say, yeah, how do I take care of me? And then I have more to give others.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of a quote that's really helped me switch things. Um, or it's a question, and it was instead of asking yourself, have I worked hard enough to deserve a break? Instead, asking yourself, have I rested enough to do my best work?
Oh,
And it really switches the patriarchal paradigm
mm,
to push yourself mind over matter, to not listen to the body, to, you can do so much more than you think you're capable of. It's this balance of like, yes, that's true, and there are times that you need to push through, but when it comes to respecting yourself and your body and your long-term goal,
mm.
I think that is the best thing to come back to ask yourself to prevent burnout.
Absolutely. And I just love having these conversations. And I love knowing that people are out there now subverting that particular patriarchal idea of how we should be as all of us on the earth. It's men and women and everyone is being sort of told you must be this way and push, push, push. And there's a push on Earth's resources. There's just this unhealthy, toxic energy. So it's important that those of us who don't naturally feel inclined that way continue to step back from those sort of tendrils
Mm,
of thought
mm,
and hold the space for the communities of those of us who are just quietly doing our own thing, not participating in those ways. Because people say, well, what can I do? What can one person do in the face of all this rubbish that goes on and all the control systems? And it's like, well, when you get to a point of critical mass, if there are enough people who are freeing their minds, freeing their hearts from the enslavement of this society that wants to break everybody down into sort of drone like, I mean, just the way of control, that systems of control, that sort of system is eventually going to be toppled by the energy of people just willing to stay with their hearts and to stay with a belief that there is a connectivity between all of us that is over and above what can be explained. So it's like keep doing what you're doing, even when it looks difficult. This is being on the path, even when showing up for your private prayer practice, whatever. Maybe you've just read an article in the paper and you think, well, what's the point? That's even more of the point to do it then if your guidance says to sit quietly, whatever it is, because we are talking about energy, and I do believe critical mass eventually it can tip from one way of being to another way, and it can almost seem miraculous if you're viewing it from the outside. But it is something to understand that what one day can look like something with a spiritual energy, another day can be a total other facet, and we need to commit to these kind of truths and these beliefs that can't really be proved, but you can feel them. And the way you feel them is from taking time for yourself to feel more into you and your heart and not what you see outside.
Oh, I love that. I agree wholeheartedly. And um, these polarities that are really pulling, especially here in America, um, like this is just a distraction. It's just trying to distract us and get all of our attention to be that robot and to tune into it and to give it more energy and then to give our priceless energy to that. And I just keep coming back to this reminder that yes, that's happening, but my energy, I don't have to give my energy to that. And that when I focus my energy on coming back to this current that genuinely fulfills me in
Mm-hmm.
an authentic way where I can live my life according to my soul path, that's when I feel my best.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this reminder that not allowing myself to get pulled out by the major tension and conflict that's happening, or to witness it, withholding it and not taking it on, which
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely my growth edge with
Yeah,
what's
that's
happening
mastery
on the
level. That's, yeah. And I wanted to say, Rena, because you were saying at the beginning off camera, talking about conflict and how conflict is so important for growth. So let's
Mhm.
bring that into the space.
Mm.
There is a lot of conflict out there right now. So what did you want to say about that?
Oh my gosh. So I saw this placard on a church driving down the street, and it said, kindness is the oil to the conflict we're witnessing on the planet right now.
Mhm.
And my heart immediately was like, rebelled against it. And I was like, no. Again, here we see just be kind, just be kind. Where to me, that's such a cop out. Like conflict, when handled um, with emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
is actually the friction that allows us to grow and to transform and to, like you said, birth this new way of being.
Mhm.
And as you were talking, and you were, you know, talking about um, the tipping point, and we pulled a card before we got on camera about taking that eagle eye view. It's really that transcendent feeling. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think that you're right. It's that thing, I call it the sandpaper for the soul. When you're talking about your personal conflict and the difficulties, it refines what is already there. But at a level of changing society, you'll see how everything that is a system is breaking down, because we're at a point now where those systems have failed us, some in really big, glaring ways, and others just in small ways. And so it's breaking down because we need to create new. And so if you just tried to paper over and didn't actually let a breakdown occur, the conflict wouldn't be able to arise anything new. It would be like a half-hearted attempt at something new, limping into the future. But I understand people are frightened by the idea of conflict and chaos because it seems like so many endings. But we know
Mm,
divine
mm.
feminine energy and the cycles of nature, endings are inevitable, and endings are always the seeds of a new beginning. So we need to kind of witness these breakdowns with a bit of trust, and even not if just slight excitement and
Mm.
openness of, well, what can come next? Because without the ability of that sort of this is wrong and that is wrong conflict, I wanted to say too, seeing all the mess. It's like seeing in the Wizard of Oz, he says, don't look, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And that's been the history of Earth. Don't look behind the curtain at all the rubbish. But now we're seeing everything daily. There's something in the paper, and seeing it and witnessing it is one way to bring healing to it, not to pretend it's not happening.
Right. And how so conflict and chaos, I think, is really hitting the nail on the head. And of course, I feel like humans really do have this conflict denial or chaos denial or death denial. Um, and I think the true way to move through that is going through your own cycles of death and rebirth. And through when you, from my own experience, truly walking through the cycles of parts of me dying and then holding, witnessing my life change, and the ego feels like it's genuinely dying. Like it's the most excruciating pain. It's what brings me down to my knees. But since I've walked through that so many times with great support systems and spiritual teachers and therapists and lots of support, not by myself, what I've really been able to witness is that, oh my God, it does birth something truly different and beautiful. And I had to walk through that myself to gain the confidence to understand what that means, what conflict is, what chaos genuinely births. And I think this really gets into the realm of one of our favorite goddesses, which is Kali Ma. And it's that
Yeah.
um, otherworldly support, that goddess energy, that when you are in the throes of that chaos and conflict, that insane divine circus energy, when you get really quiet and dial in on exactly what is dying, or symbolizing death within your life or something that's actually dying, or and you get really clear and dial into that and give that all your energy, it births new energy. And so I think a lot of people are scared of conflict and chaos, and they don't know what's on the other side, is because they haven't actually allowed themselves, like you said, to break down, to
Mm.
break through.
Mm.
And I think that's such a great thing to like pinpoint.
Yeah, it's like, am I breaking apart or am I making a breakthrough? It's really interesting. And of course, we
I
want to
think it's
say
both, right?
it's both because that's not resisting it. And I also want to talk about chaos and say there is some stuff that is obviously really, really troubling, but chaos itself too as an energy is always part of the natural world. You know, like you look at the chrysalis of the caterpillar makes its own chrysalis, and then within the chrysalis it becomes total mush before it becomes a butterfly. And so there's always that energy of breaking down and surrendering. And I love what you were saying about parts of you. And I was thinking as you were saying that, they become the fertilizer for the new you. So it's not
Mm,
about people saying maybe, oh, you've changed. To me, it's always I've refined who I really am outside of what the world might have asked me to be and having to cope and move in the world with others. It's not so much change, it's like more authentic nature. And that's what the leaving behind cycles. That's why it's so nice to know that there are people doing different ceremonies and things for all different pinnacles and timings in your life, leaving a job, even things like that. Energy is important to honor gateways and things. It's not just about your age, but it's about experience. And there'll always be change coming. And we're always willing to quickly get onto the next thing and jump on the next bus, as humans. But we need to be in a space of allowing that old to end and almost sitting in it for a little bit, like as you sort of farewell it. And that kind of sounds strange, but just honoring you're not who you were when you started this journey. And yet, are you maybe more of yourself? And thinking of all that you've been through, and you would never have come to where you are today without all those opportunities, too. So it's really that I feel like it's that what you said before, priestess path of honoring the path and letting things go when they're no longer serving you and then being in the void. Maybe I'm always in the void. I never get to just hand over one thing for another. I've never had that experience. Thank you, universe, and receive with the other. It's always wait and process in the void with Kali Ma and not really knowing. And then the light shines in and here comes the next thing. So it's a
yeah,
process.
it is. And it's a cycle. And I like how you started this off with, excuse me, the cycles in nature. And I think that is one of the reasons we're so scared of chaos and conflict is because of our disconnect with the natural world
Mm.
and our disconnect with natural cycles. Women have 28-day cycles, just like the moon, a 28-day cycle. The cycle of the caterpillar to chrysalis to butterfly, the cycles of flowers being buds and blooming and then being, turning into an old, dying, decaying flower. It's like all these aspects of cycles of life that when you, like you said, take the time to tune in and really be authentically with the timing of that cycle, you're in alignment. And when you're in alignment like that, you can be in the greatest chaos and conflict of your life, but when you're just with it and on it and in alignment with it, it actually becomes so authentic that there's nowhere else you want to be but healing that chaos and that conflict, or going through, you know, what the caterpillar feels inside of the chrysalis. It literally, the caterpillar goes into this void, into this chrysalis, into the womb, and then turns into goo. And like,
Yeah.
that's the same being that comes out as a butterfly. Like, what does it feel to like die to that goo and become nothing and
Hmm.
become liquid?
Hmm.
A transformational liquid. Like, the caterpillar just has to be so aligned with exactly what's happening because it's taking all of the energy to move that into fertilization for the new. Do you feel the same, Laura,
Yes.
when you're so in your chaos and so aligned with it that it becomes it, and it's not like a martyr or like, you know, distorted kind of way. It's like, oh yeah, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yes, and I almost want to say there's an attitude of there can be a sort of celebration. It's what I like to call excitifying, like it can be exciting and terrifying at the same time. There's a sense of, I don't know, like rightness of this feels, as you say, there'll be times where you feel so overwhelmed, everything is so, it feels so difficult, and you're not really sure where you're going, and you know you can't cling to the past. But there can be a rightness in just coming into the heart because not dropping out of the head and just breathing into your heart and sort of accepting and saying, wow, this is what is being asked of me on the journey in my life. And so I show up for it. Like there's things that you can't
Mm.
avoid. And so we try to avoid them at all costs and push them away. And they'll still be there to be dealt with later. It'll just be more painful. So
Yeah.
accepting, a lot more painful actually, accepting the path and accepting what's before you and understanding with kind of that spiritual vision, the eagle vision that you said, that there's an openness to the chaos and to the endings. And I love to think of Kali with her crematorial grounds, like the energy of she resides over all, she doesn't mind the muck and the death and the dying and the decay, because she needs to help like honor those endings and really really bring about endings. Do you know what I mean? Like it's that, I want to say it's that thing where you've been with a work crew or something or a group and you're like, oh, we'll be friends forever. People think they'll be friends forever, and then they go on to the next thing and it never happens again. It's that human part of not wanting to, it'd be nicer to say sometimes you are friends forever, but you know what I'm trying to say? I just want to use it as an example.
Totally.
Sometimes you
Totally.
are, but you don't know that. We don't like to have endings, basically. We avoid them. So we try to wrap it all up, and then it's like it's a little bit like bleeding your own energy too. If you don't
Mm.
complete cycles, you'll be leaking like life force energy. Whereas it'd be nicer to just be like, thank you so much. This was a great opportunity. And then you go, and if something comes on the path later, fine. But I feel like we leave too many doors open through fear of what will happen if we close them energetically, what we can do.
Mm. I feel so called. Like I know you so intimately, so I know the answer to this, but I feel so called for the podcast to ask you, like, what do you do to honor your own endings and to like honor your beginnings? And like, what's specific to Laura and your rites of passage?
Oh my gosh, it's the rites of passage. I mean, working with energy, I always say to people, energy is spiritual energy is intelligent. And so if you can vision it or feel it or imagine a color, I like to use energy and visualize it. And so I often do things that would be termed cutting cords or working with Archangel Michael and his key of light. He actually giving permission to close off one door and open another. So I do lots of visualizations that I also feel within my body, and I often will cloak myself with light, like the chrysalis. It's very organic. But when I'm feeling, I know an ending is coming, I'll do something like that. I'll visualize, like I'll put all the people in a bubble of light with the gratitude for the ones who were great and the ones who weren't. I still have gratitude because of what it brought me. So for me, it would be seriously.
For the sorry, no, the gratitude for the ones who were great and the ones who were not.
It's all the
Sorry.
same. It's all good.
Yeah, no,
You
that was
know?
great. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, no, no. I know it's so funny because when you've got that difficulty, you're just like, "Oh, I cannot take this anymore." But so for me, I would say tuning in with a particular divine being and my own soul, and then kind of crafting my own little closing ceremony. Now, whether there's more to do after that or not, but that's what I would do. I visualize energy, I use it on myself to cloak or to clear or to move, and then I always ask for a blessing for whatever I'm leaving because I know that that's still going on in its own way, but I am now disconnected. And then as to opening to the future, I think that takes a lot of courage of not too much planning and forward thinking. I always have to have that tightrope of this is my dream and my vision, but like what does the universe want to burst through me? Like when I get out of my own human way. And that I still find difficult because I know I let the balloon go. I'm like, okay, here, universe, you show me, and then I'll listen. So it's visualization and energy intention, I guess. That was what I do. What about you? Can I ask you what sort of things you like to do?
wait, sorry, I just got so much from what you just shared. So, the way that you visualize that, so you visualize kind of like everyone who's connected to that
Mm.
in a white bubble, and then you like let it go.
Yeah, like putting light around whatever it was and essentially blessing everyone because there are no accidents, you know,
Right.
and then allowing that to be what it is, but be disconnected from it. And that's where the key comes in, like
Yeah.
people,
I
different
love
texts,
that.
and saying to Archangel Michael, I really believe, everyone listening, there can be times when instinctively within yourself, you're done with that thing, that thought, that pattern, whatever, and you can have the permission from the universe to say to the universe, I'm done with that.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh. And you will
However
be
you want to
honored
do
in
that.
your free will.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
done with
that's such
that
a
now. Lock it, or imagine his sort of like cutting the ties that bind. And I've been doing that for, I was actually told that a long time ago when I was younger growing up. You can cut the ties that bind so that it's cut the emotion, but the love and the like light between humans can remain, but
Mm.
any heaviness of emotion is like cleared.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so beautiful. I feel it so deeply, just the way that you bring in that support, and then, anyone or anything that's connected to it, letting it go. And then that key is just so, I can feel it too. It's so powerful. And yet it's not this, it, it doesn't have to be this elaborate ceremony that you're out and, going and doing, and ritual. Even though rituals are very important and ceremony is very important, sometimes you just don't have the time to do it.
Or the emotional capability, Rena, when it's, as you would know, when you want to do ceremony, you need to be in a good space
A hundred
emotionally. And
percent.
so when it's something a bit challenging, probably I think the best thing for me to do is go straight to an angel, a divine being with light, because I actually need that support in that moment. And then probably afterward, there might be some nice ritual, but I don't want to kid myself that the ritual and the candle lighting is helping. So yeah, you're right. Be in that space of the most, for me, it's the most immediate thing I can do to help me like release those tendrils and then be free for the next sort of energy movement, I guess is the thing. Yeah, it's really important.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I've never heard you share that before. And that was like so powerful. And we know each other so intimately on this spiritual plane that it's so cool to learn something new from you.
Oh, thank you for asking me. I was thinking, oh, what do I do? It's simple. It's always simple, I think. And like you said to me one time, at the moment, the one thing you've got with you, like the crystal, you've got like one crystal you're taking everywhere you go. You've just simplified it down. And yet, to me, when you showed it to me, the energy of it is like so far reaching. It's mini altars and it's springing forth because of the intention of simplifying
Mm.
into one thing. And I think we get caught up in the mind of needing to make things be, thinking that with all effort it makes it more special, whereas one really sincere thought or prayer in the moment could be the most special thing that you needed to do. And it's trusting in you and trusting
Yeah.
that endings, we can't avoid them. They're always coming. So, how do we navigate them with grace and then allow ourselves to open to the future? Even if the future seems scary, I think we need to take permission now as humans and say, we cannot go on the way things were. Where we are currently is not the end of the destination. It is a whole other thing happening, but we have not reached the final destination. And so we have to walk through this muck with our heads high and our hearts strong, saying we don't actually know how it's going to be in the future, but we do believe. If you ask the heart, we do believe something else is coming, and we're in that goo, right? We're all, Earth is in the goo right now.
Yes. It's a lot of goo. It's very gooey.
But don't mistake it, and don't anyone think, I know you don't, but to our listeners, don't anyone be thinking that this is the final destination and that this is starting to set in stone and concretize anything, because it's a last gasp attempt of these forces of negativity, really, to try and keep their stronghold, and they can't. Earth is ascending. Those energies cannot go forward with us anymore.
Yeah, I always think of the slingshot. And like this is the regression that it feels like: inequality, taking away women's rights, um, uh, putting women back in homes as caretakers here in America, saying that's their only role, for women to step aside in, powerful positions, political power, like powerful political positions. It really does feel like we're really going back. And then as soon as it let go, it's just going to slingshot so far. And that's really a great visual that I keep close to my heart in this. And that before a paradigm dies is the strongest it gets. So let's really like hold that space to know. And this is how I know I'm a visionary, and this is how I know that this is why I'm on this planet, is because I do deeply know that within. And there are times that I really have to cultivate it. Um, and align with it and know it. But when I get back down to the brass tacks of what I believe and my true beliefs, like I really do believe that.
Yeah. And many of us do, I really think that, but some of us maybe aren't sure or we don't give permission to it in a big way, like what you and I are saying. And you're right. And the other thing, the question is, what is that energy so afraid of that it would go that far? Don't ask it. Don't ask people like that what they're so afraid of, but just consider for
Yeah.
yourself as a self-reflection question. What could it possibly be so afraid of that it would take all of these insane measures to try and control more than one half of the globe? So that's the thing, that's that you said before, a paradigm shifts. It seems more and more insane in the membrane.
Yeah. And before this talk, Laura, you were saying about Australia and the newspapers and how like um people outside of America think it's crazy,
Yes,
literally.
yes. And we're all holding space for that on behalf of all Americans, feeling like nobody thinks that's right. And then there'll be other spiritual people who are genuinely praying and sending light. So we want you all to know if you're in more like the concentrated realms of it, because I mean, there's repercussions on all levels, but that there are so many people who are not in agreement with those things, as well as the people in your country who aren't. And it is kind of time for a really big change. So if we can all really hold fast to our heart's intention that there is goodness within humanity and we can move beyond that. Like you say, Rena, we can't explain the why, but we can feel that visionary quality that things are starting to get better even in the midst of this and will continue to get better as people, unplug from mass consciousness, which has been harmful. I always say this, the more people will individualize themselves and be their own truth and be authentic, we'll start to create really proper communities that don't have conformity at the
Yes.
basis of them.
Hmm. Yes, agreed, 100%. And you can't have a conscious communal connection until you actually connect with the part within you that is authentic. And so if you've never connected to that, you can't connect to authentic community.
Mm-mm.
And it takes time. It took me years.
It takes time. We're not just saying, oh, this is an easy solution, but please commit to the
Right.
path. And what makes you keep going? There's something within you that just is like, what else would I do? You just do it. It feels
Yeah.
important. And I think that's the other thing with community too, of people sort of act like there's that line, herding cats. It's like trying to herd cats. And people sort of tend to think that it would be chaos if you let a whole bunch of individuals kind of pull together for the one reason. It seems like it would be chaos. But if those individuals were genuinely coming from their soul resonance of who they are without ego agenda, and they're all very different, they would actually pull together for the same frequency. And that would be more powerful than a place that makes you sign rules and whatever. That's how humans had to do it.
Totally. And this, we were talking about this too, is that I'm in a community right now where it's kind of mind blowing to me because there's not heavy rules, there's not heavy restrictions, there's not heavy boundaries, and and everyone really is respectful.
Mhm.
It's kind of just beautiful to witness and be a part of. And in fact, there's this encouragement to be authentically in your process, whatever that is, and to not be polished and to not be perfect and to really share yourself in a way that's in whatever you're in. And that's just so refreshing to me because it's like, oh, yeah, when you put yeah, it's amazing.
No, it is amazing. And like I also can feel that we're talking about like a level of mastery on the path too, that people in a community like that have done a lot
Hmm.
of their inner work. Because what I always find, amusing with humans is it's like you can say to someone, will you tell me the truth? And they'll think they have told you the truth. Or you know what I mean? It's a fine line between what one person thinks of as truth and what another does. So someone
Mm.
else might be saying, I'm just being my authentic self, but they're actually just being a word vomit. Do you know what I mean? So that it's
Yeah,
it's like an attraction. It's like a frequency that attracts those who are being their authentic truth and not just paying lip service to it And so that's a journey for people to take, of course. And if you're in a position where you can see you're being authentically you, everyone else is saying the words, but they're actually just doing, what does Brene Brown say? Like that, oh, it's something she says, I can't think now, but like it's the inappropriate oversharing, which is sort of disguised
Oh,
as,
floodlighting.
right?
Floodlighting.
So you can't explain to someone who's in that what the other community or what other people are doing being authentic is real, and they're still at a process of goo. They're still working
Oh
out
gosh.
their voice. So it's
This
like
is
you
discernment, right?
discernment
Sorry,
and
I didn't mean to talk
attracting.
over you.
We need to talk about that. And we're going to actually, I think we'll have to do it another time because we were going to,
Yeah.
first of all, although we've touched on it, we've touched. But I just wanted to say to anyone listening too that it's important to understand frequency and where you land and what you're attracted to, because there'll be people who need to go through those ways of expressing. But if you are in it and your frequency is different, it's going to be heavy lifting on you to listen to that. Whereas you feel like a real freedom when you're in the space and everyone is taking self responsibility to be their truth. And it feels
Mm.
light. It feels beautiful hearing people's truth. It doesn't feel like I've just been hit with a sack full of muck,
Yeah.
in the face. Authenticity. Oh,
Uh, yeah.
so that's the
Such a
frequency.
great thing to discern, yeah.
Yeah, it's so important. And I think that's where it comes into alignment of trusting yourself, trusting your path, because ultimately no one can really tell you what's right or wrong for you as you experimenting with your own self and your energy. And then what you say when you feel that resonance, following that and knowing that it's not being selfish, and if you feel you need to experiment a little bit, lean out of the comfort zone of giving too much, it's okay to then to go back. You don't have to, when you take new steps, you don't have to make them be your future. Do you know what I mean? It's a process to getting somewhere else. So don't be afraid to try to get yourself out of like patterns and behaviors you might have been in for a while. Like take opportunities to be new.
So that just like sparks so many. How much time do we have?
We can go a bit longer. I mean, there's so much happening here.
There is. So what do you do, Laura, when you find yourself, and you kind of just answered it? You were like, just that next step when you're in process, you don't have to know the whole, you know, you just take the next step. Like, what do you do when you find yourself with someone who is floodlighting
Mm.
versus wanting to, someone who's at that next level and really does want to share community with people who have done the work, put in the
Mm.
hours, put in like the podcast, the 10,000 hours and more.
Yeah. Right.
Like there is that difference. And I just feel that's so relevant for America right now.
So, are you talking about, so for personally, for me, when there's some energy that I know of what's being said or done, often I will have to remove myself from it if it's a group or a workplace or whatever, or even, a friend group. But at the flip side, there's been other times where I am asked for a certain period. I had a friend, and she's a beautiful lady, and she does all, card readings, and she loves the angels, but she really had trouble. She would put rose-colored glasses on for everything. She'd only look for the best in people, which seems like a nice thing, but she was constantly getting body slammed by people being a-holes, consciously or unconsciously, because she was too open. And she would say to me, "Oh, I had rose color. I thought that person was, what they aren't, and now I'm so disappointed and hurt." And we often knew some of the same people in those years. And I had always seen the person. I had a filter straight away. I got what was going on, but the universe was like, "You need to be there for a while." So I would have an awareness. I wasn't fooled, but I had to be in the energy of accepting what was there. I guess my energy was supporting it. It was helping to burn off any layers within me of like
Mm.
restrictions or old fears about, what it is like to be human. Um, so there's that for me. It's like if I get the strong feeling from guidance, I have to be somewhere and there's no other out, I will be there with as much grace as possible. Again, sending light to everyone, like, the higher parts of everyone, but not letting them get away with rubbish. And then there's times when I feel I really need to leave that group or that person or whatever of some reason, because if I keep digesting them energetically, it's going to keep me held back. So that's when I have to, like, there's a Melissa McCarthy movie where she says, cut the anchor and sail away. Except in that movie, she was using it as a weapon against herself. But many times I've had to actually like up stumps and just leave, relationships, like, just say this is no longer working. And I truly believe that if it's not for the highest good of the person, like for me, it's not for the highest good of everyone else either. It gives an
Mm,
opportunity for freedom. And it's not just about pleasing myself, it's about purity of energy and the opportunity for someone else, if someone leaves the equation, for them to maybe take that on board and they could question, is there something I need to do here? Like it's an opportunity for healing for everyone, but you never do yourself or anyone else favors by staying in heavy obligation situations. As I say, on the flip side, unless guidance keeps giving you, keeps putting you there, so that's another level. But you need to trust. And if you're not sure if you're meant to be there, keep asking your guidance. Say, is this right for me? Am I meant to go? I'd like to go. I used to say, I'd like to go. Is it time? Not
yeah, but
yet.
I think you really, you, what I heard you say is like, if you're digesting their energy and it becomes harmful to you, I've noticed the same thing where I am finally removed from that situation. And there's times I agree with you where it's like, okay, I'm here for a moment. My energy is, this acupuncture pressure point in the earth or this relationship or whatever, and I'm here for a reason. But then once it becomes detrimental to our own vibration, I completely I feel the same thing. And that's usually when you'll feel that I've felt the shift myself.
Yeah. It's a bit like that shamanic thing where you can take on a certain amount of poison you need to learn it, to understand it, to integrate it. And then there'll be a certain level. Some people might never, but some of us do have to be in situations. And then you can sort of bring a healing to that and then you move on. So I know you've had things like that too. I know you deeply trust your body. And we've had situations together where
Yes.
you will get a feeling quicker about someone than I do. Your body's like, and you give me the space to be like, I have to move away from there. But like, you give me this honesty, and then I have to go, so what am I doing for me? And it's usually always spot on, but there's a timing for it. So I love that about you, that we can discuss that you know what I mean, to leave a situation and to trust the timing of it. But we can only know that for ourselves. But if you're feeling really
Yeah.
uncomfortable about something, I would suggest that you think in and feel into giving yourself even a buffer of space away from it for a little while to decide what's them or what's the situation and what's really you. Just a buffer, even a breathing space.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think my body's so sensitive from dance, like growing up from taking dance classes since I was 5 years old and just grooming myself as a very young child to be in tune with my body and understand all these intricacies. It can be actually very dramatic for me at times to come into someone's presence that my body just totally um it cannot it rejects it instantly. It's like very, ooh, it could be intense. And then there's um fascinating times where all of a sudden someone that I can be around, all of a sudden it just shifts. And
Hmm.
all of a sudden my body's like, oh my God, I can't do this. Oh my gosh. And it's even shocking to me at times where I'm
Hmm.
like, I can feel it on such a deep cellular level that I'm like, oh my God, is this really happening? And then again, it's that coming back full circle, pun intended, literally death, cycles of death and, birthing and rebirth. It's all connected.
Mm. And it's never static, the journey. We are souls having a human experience, but we have these bodies made of matter. And so change is inevitable. And change is inevitable really for spiritual energy too, like it shifts. So I think the main thing to leave people with just after this amazing chat, I love it.
Yes.
But just to leave people with is to trust that, the journey is not over yet, and you have permission to give to yourself first and to listen to the signals of your body. Because Rena and I have talked about the divine feminine before, and one of the biggest markers of that is the human body. No matter what sex you are, the body is connected to earth, and earth is that Gaia frequency of divine feminine energy. And so you need to listen to the signals of your body. Stop living in your head and stop intellectualizing your spirituality or trying to think of the most reasonable solution for all the rubbish that's going on in the world now. Just be in the body and listen to your body and take breaks when you need to and be kind to yourself. And whatever work you do for yourself at this point on earth, spiritual work and healing, it's going out. I cannot even stress how much it's going out into the ethers for the benefit of all beings.
Yeah, that being spiritually selfish to be a healing presence. It
Yeah,
is
and it's
that.
kind of fun. It's rebellious to go use a word that has connotations of negativity, like selfish, and then use it as a healing mantra.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
In your face,
I,
conformity.
yeah. It is. I agree wholeheartedly.
And humor. Rena has the best laugh ever. And when we tune in with the divine, often she gets this amazing energy and laughter. So I would also just say to anyone, do your best to find little things that bring you joy and keep you connected to that source, a little bit of humor, because we need to keep this lightness. You know, it's heavy being human. We
Yes,
want to
I
bring
agree. And being with people that raise the vibration together. Like Laura, this time with you has just been so beautiful to be able to raise together, raise our vibration, to learn, to enjoy, to share, to just, yeah, be in our joy. It's just been so beautiful.
it makes my heart so happy. We do this anyway, behind the scenes, but to be
Yeah.
able to share it is special.
Agreed.
Well, thank you so much, Rena. It's been a delightful time as always, and I hope that this has in some way sparked you. We also just believe that getting on the technology and speaking into the ethers, putting this positive energy of goodwill out there also helps. So if you're talking to your friends online, just be aware the positive stuff that you say, the energy all adds together. So be on your own side, look after yourself, and keep going forward with hope in your heart.
Mm, and so it
Thanks very
is.
much. And so it is. Thank you, everyone, and blessings until next time. Bye.